Welcome to the Mexico Show. This episode of the podcast is made possible by my online Spanish courses over at mexicanfluency.teachable.com. There, I have a course for Spanish beginners, the Spanish Fundamentals program. This gives you everything you need to learn to begin your path to fluency in terms of both how to learn Spanish as well as core Spanish fundamental skills. If you're more advanced, check out the Spanish Immersion course. Gracias. Let's get started with today's episode. ¿Qué onda, chavos? What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of The Mexico Show, a podcast about all things Mexico. In this episode of the podcast, Rennie and I are going to be discussing the earthquake of 1985 in Mexico City. This is a really monumental event. This is a hugely disastrous event that happened in 85. And it affected not just Mexico City, but the entire country. Really tragic and a very sad, but in hindsight, super interesting event. So we're going to talk about this today. Rennie knows a lot more about this than I do. I've studied the history of Mexico. I know a little bit about it. I've seen some of the videos, some of the damage and things like that. And I've spent time in Mexico City, but I know that Rennie knows a lot more about the details and specifics. Yeah. So she actually gave me the idea for this episode. So let's talk about it. It's really cool. And if you ever go visit Mexico City, which I highly recommend, you'll definitely, it's definitely good to know that this happened. And it's definitely good to kind of be mentally prepared for future earthquakes because they do happen.
They do happen. It's a cultural thing in Mexico. It's like it was a before and an after in the Mexican culture after this earthquake. Yeah, it really like divided pretty much like the timeline. Yeah.
So let's take us back to 85. Some of the things that happened.
In 85, it was normal day. I think it was like 7 a.m. and it was an 8.2 earthquake. So it was disastrous. And of course, with all the corruption of the 80s, and it never really happened like a very big earthquake in Mexico City. I think the biggest one was in like the 50s, and it was a 6 or 7, but it wasn't that bad. Mm-hmm. So of course the buildings weren't made to resist an earthquake that big.
So in modern Mexican history, this is the first time that an 8.5 or 8 or an 8 had ever rocked Mexico City?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
okay.
In modern history.
Wow.
In 1985, 7 a.m., 7 something a.m. So a lot of people were already in their jobs. A lot of people were getting to their jobs.
Yeah.
So the city completely, like a lot of buildings came down, important buildings. The city collapsed. A lot of people that had family in Mexico City and then they were out, they thought the city completely disappeared. Yeah. People were talking on the news that the city disappeared because it was back in the 80s. Nobody had internet. The telephone lines stopped working. So nobody even knew what happened. They just knew a very bad earthquake happened and nobody was able to talk on the phone or anything. So people thought that Mexico City disappeared.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And it's important to kind of, maybe we'll take this moment right here just to kind of rewind and talk about kind of the geography of Mexico City for a lot of you guys who might not know this.
Oh, yeah.
Mexico City, if you go back and you look at when the Spaniards conquered the Aztec Empire, the capital, Tenochtitlan was the Aztec capital was built basically in, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's kind of in this bowl, right?
In a lake. It's on top of a lake.
Yeah, but the lake was kind of in this bowl of mountains, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of how it was.
Pretty much.
And it was this like beautiful city built in this bowl, basically kind of like amidst this massive lake, right?
But it's literally on top of a lake.
Yeah.
They built on top of a lake.
Yeah.
In like swampy terrain.
Yeah, like it's so hard to imagine it when you're there because you're like how do they drain the lake? How do they do this? It's the most bizarre thing in the world. Mm-hmm. And there's like temples and all sorts of artifacts. They literally built like these massive cathedrals and massive structures on top of of the old capital. And it was, like she said, like a very swampy, marshy type of geography.
Yeah.
So not only that, but it's also, it's a fault line, right?
Yeah.
Where you have crazy earthquakes and
No, it's not like on top of a fall like San Francisco. It's not like that.
yeah.
But it's close to one. So
Oh, that's right. It's actually in the south where the fault line is, right?
yeah,
And they get
yeah, it's
rocks.
like by Oaxaca
Yeah.
and Chiapas. I think the epicenter was in the Pacific Ocean, and then it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Because you always hear about Oaxaca, Chiapas getting the effects of
Yeah.
whatever the earthquake is in Mexico City, because it's built on this like really unstable,
Yeah.
this stupid ass like design, like construction zone, like where this massive, one of the biggest cities in the world is built. It's like if there's going to be any kind of reverberations coming from the fault line, wherever that is, it's going to be really, really felt there.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So the epicenter wasn't in Mexico City, but it destroyed Mexico City because of the combination of the terrain, which is like built on top of a lake and
Yeah.
a swampy terrain, and also that nobody built back then thinking that an earthquake could, destroy the city,
Yeah.
and a lot of corruption too. That this is prepared to, sustain an earthquake, and in reality couldn't.
It's interesting. I wonder, like the Aztecs, and we'll get back to the earthquake
yeah,
of '85 and beyond that. But like, I wonder if the Aztecs, because how the city was built, like I wonder if they really felt the effects of earthquakes at that time. Because obviously they happen, but I don't think it was really to that effect, to that degree, because a lot of the structure was on water, right? I mean,
Yeah, who knows?
I don't know.
Maybe they already had pyramids and they came down, or maybe no big earthquake happened like that. I don't really know much about like past.
Yeah. All right. So take us back to '85.
Yeah. So the city completely destroyed. Lots of buildings came down. The government reported that it was like 3,000 deaths, but in reality, it was they're saying for sure more than 10,000 people died,
Yeah.
and some resources say that it was even 50,000 people that died.
Yeah, it was like Mexico's 9/11 in a way.
Yeah, more. I mean,
Yeah.
2,000 people died in 9/11. Almost 2,900. Almost 3,000 people died in 11.
Yeah.
Almost 3,000. And here you're saying almost for sure more than 10,000.
Oh, so the government actually reported 10,000.
No, the government reported 3,000.
Oh,
So the government
okay.
reported a 9/11, but
Yeah. But what the reality was.
But the reality, like sources right now said, like we can confirm it was more than 10,000.
So why would the government try to because it's a natural disaster, why would the government try to hide that?
The Olympics were the next year, and they were going to be in Mexico City.
In 86.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it for the first day, I think it was Japan, I think it was Japan that offered help to find victims that were trapped in the, how do you say, rubble?
In the rubble, yeah.
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 And they declined the help.
Wow.
And they said that they were going to take care of it. The soldiers weren't letting people inside the buildings, the collapsed buildings, to try to help people. They were just standing there, not letting people in, and a lot of people were trapped. So the government, it was like the clear example that the government didn't know what to do, didn't know anything,
Yeah.
declined help, and the people themselves were the ones that rescued people. So
Yeah.
people started fighting the soldiers like, hey, I'm going to get in and we're going to save people. So it was like a very unique moment where everybody came together to try to help people.
Yeah.
A lot of people were helped just by regular people that started digging and digging in the rubble to try to get people out.
Yeah.
Yeah. They didn't have water for days. Until 2015, there were still people living that, they were left without a home, that were living in like tents provided by the government for like the the people that were.
Jesus. So they like just stayed there, basically?
Yeah, basically.
God.
Because they promised that they were going to give people money to rebuild their houses.
Yeah.
And they never did.
Yeah.
So they were still living in those.
Everything they had was destroyed. And
yeah.
God,
they never
what a
gave the
nightmare.
money.
What a
They were
nightmare.
still, until 2015, people were still in, like, from 85. And so another interesting thing is that 32 years later, the exact same day, every year after this earthquake, there is drill? Is that how you call it?
A drill?
A drill?
Yeah.
Where you like
Yeah, exactly. Like a emergency drill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is like an example
Yeah.
of what you should do.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
every year.
It's a trial. It's like a trial run.
Yeah.
Of if we have
another
one. Yeah. It's like a fire. We have like fire drills.
Yeah.
Hurricane. Earthquake. Kind of where you.
Yeah.
Tornado. Like depends. Like, if you live in a danger zone, it's pretty damn likely you're gonna have.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to practice that.
So every year, in memory of the 1985 earthquake, they do a drill.
Yeah.
So they did it like at 12 at noon. Everybody that is in their jobs and schools and everything. And then like at 1, a real earthquake came. And a lot of people were like, another drill? So they didn't really pay much attention. And it was a very bad one. Again.
Wow.
And the epicenter was closer to Mexico City. The epicenter, I believe, it was in Puebla. So a lot of buildings were destroyed as well. Not many deaths. It was like only 300 deaths. But yeah, a lot of buildings.
But that same day, they were doing trials.
The exact same day.
God damn.
And a lot of people thought like, it's another drill because it's the day where we, remember.
Yeah. So bringing this up to like modern day, so there are still somewhat recently, I think there was a pretty bad hurricane, pretty bad earthquake there.
Yeah, this year. But from 2017, they started doing more inspections. Like, why did, again, some buildings collapse if everything was supposed to be earthquake proof?
Yeah.
And a lot of them were already damaged by the earthquake of 1985.
Yeah.
And most of the buildings that fell were, because of corruption, they were new, but somebody signed like, it's approved. And then in reality it wasn't.
Yeah.
So, it showed up a lot of corruption in the architecture stuff in Mexico City.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So
one school completely collapsed, and a lot of kids got killed.
Probably most of them, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, most of them were kids.
Yeah.
Some teachers, but mostly kids. And it was because the owner bribed somebody to say like she could build there, and she couldn't.
Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
So so basically like that's kind of what you can take out of this is that like how can this like apply to your own travels, your own life, is like understanding kind of the level of corruption that Mexico has had to face over the years and how that has really contributed to a lot of really bad things for just normal everyday people. And then also too, if you go to Mexico City, be warned, you might be there when the ground starts to shake, the building starts to sway a little bit. It can happen.
No, there's a sound that starts 1 minute before the earthquake hits.
But a lot of times you'll just be asleep. One of my friend Rob, he's lived in Mexico. He's an American guy. He's lived in Mexico City. He actually be a great person to have on the podcast at some point to talk about Mexico City related stuff because he lived there for on and off for a couple of years, and he's told me stories about waking up in the middle of the night and
with the alarm.
Well, he didn't really say anything about the alarm.
Oh no, the alarm it's when it's like above 6, I believe.
Yeah.
So it says like alerta sísmica, but it's super loud. Even if you're sleeping, it's gonna wake you up.
Oh shit!
It's in all the city.
No,
and
it
it's
wasn't
the
anything
loudest alarm.
They were just trembles. There wasn't like he was never there for a major.
Yeah, it's only
earthquake.
when it's like I think above 6 or something. Not all the time it sounds because you know you feel earthquakes all the time, but it's not.
Yeah. No, they're not dangerous though.
Yeah. But when it's dangerous, it sounds, and you have 1 minute to escape wherever you are. to go to the street.
Damn.
Yeah, one happened, I think it was this year in June? I think it was June.
Yeah.
It was, like 7 point something, but nothing fell because a lot of improving from 2017.
Yeah,
a lot of improvement.
And the current president too. Like I know, like some people hate him, some people love him, but like he is actually from Mexico City, so I think that
he's not from Mexico City.
Oh, he's not.
No, he's from.
Oh no, he was a mayor though, right?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he was a mayor, so he probably like takes some sort of pride in like
he
trying
says
to make shit
he
better.
loves the city, so.
Yeah, I mean.
But yeah, and after 2017, it was like so obvious that they had to do something because this was going to happen again.
Oh yeah, for sure. Awesome, great episode. Let's end it right here. Thank you guys so much for watching watching or listening to this episode. If you're checking us out on YouTube or Facebook, or if you're just listening, we should be available now almost anywhere where podcasts can be heard: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. So make sure to check us out. Again, as always, I like to remind you, if you're learning Spanish, make sure to check out our other podcast, our other sister project at Mexican Fluency. You can check that out at Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and also just where any podcast can be heard. That is basically us having conversations in Spanish. It's really focused heavily on Mexican Spanish, so hopefully we'll help you out there. All right, that's all we got for this episode, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Hasta pronto. Nos vemos. Adiós.